Hi, welcome everyone to episode 83 of PopCultX. As always, Gabriel and Danny here bringing you the best news of anything pop culture, music, television, musical theater, etc. So let's go ahead and get started. Thank you for joining us once again this week. What have you been up to, Danny? What have you seen, heard, listened to, written?
Well, quite a bit. I mean, I feel like it's been ages since we actually got together here. I mean, I know we've had schedule variances and we were talking with different guests that we've had. So, but it's good to see you.
Yeah.
Everyone else out there, also good to see you guys. Thanks for tuning in. I watched two things I watched TV or streaming wise, I guess you would call it. And first one was a new show on Peacock Network called Bumper in Berlin. Now, if that Bumper name sounds kind of familiar to you, it's because it is a spinoff of the Pitch Perfect movies. So
Okay.
Adam Devine's character Bumper Allen it's 10 years in the future past the last movie, and his character goes to, guess you guessed it, Berlin, and to become a star. And it's I've seen like the first four episodes, and it's a silly fun. It's one of those shows that you don't expect it to be groundbreaking or expect it to be emotionally moving or substantial. It's just fun. I enjoy it. I mean, I've enjoyed the other movies because of the whole singing aspect of it and the a cappella group aspect, and that's always been intriguing to me. So when I saw the show, great, and it's been a lot of fun. I enjoy it.
Nice. Yeah, I can't say that I'm a big fan of those movies, so I'm not going to exactly run to it. I
Right.
do think he's funny though. He's a funny actor, a comedic actor.
Hmm.
I've seen some of his other work that I find to be kind of funny. So maybe down the road I'll have to check it out. Maybe when it's over and you let me know that it's worthwhile.
It's
But
you say that he's done other comedies, and I think he is a very underrated comedian because there's a movie that with him about his phone. Oh, what's it called? I think it's called like Jinx or something like that, where he has enters in a strange relationship with his cell phone, and his phone is basically controlling his life, and it
yeah,
helped to make his life better. But it
yeah.
is hilarious. I think what's her name? Oh goodness, I can't think of the character who or person who does the voice of the phone. I want to say Rosa Byrne. Does that sound familiar?
Rose Byrne
Yeah, I think that's
from
it.
Bridesmaids.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
Rose Byrne. Yeah, Rose Byrne.
yeah. She does the voice of the phone, and she's hilarious. I mean, if you want to, don't watch the show if you don't doesn't fit your bill. But go watch that movie. It is
Yeah.
just funny. I mean, it's one of those movies that sneaks up on you funny. Like you weren't expecting it to go where it went, and it just kind of it just made me laugh throughout the whole movie.
Does she have her Australian accent in the movie? Because I think she's actually from Australia.
You know, I don't think so. I think she has more of an American accent, so it's not her true voice then.
Yeah, because I was surprised actually to hear that she was from Australia because I the only roles I've ever seen her from, she's playing either Americans or I think maybe Irish when she plays Doctor Moira McTaggart in the X-Men films. Um,
Yeah,
so yeah. Anyway, I was just curious because I really want to hear her real speaking voice. I think it'd be
right.
kind of interesting because Australians have such a distinct way of speaking.
They do. They do. And
Yeah.
it's always surprising when like you get so familiar with an actor in an American voice and you don't realize that all of a sudden, wait, they're British or they're Australian, and it's kind of a surprise. At least to me it is.
Yeah. So what I saw this week, or I guess last week, was the first episode of the Wednesday series on Netflix, uh, directed by Tim Burton. I was really excited about it. I know that I vocalized some apprehension when it came
Hmm.
to Catherine Zeta-Jones playing Morticia. Luckily, from what I've seen so far, she's not like the main focus of the series.
Yeah.
Obviously, Wednesday Adams is. Jenna Ortega plays Wednesday, and I have to say, like, she's amazing. Like, she
Yeah.
plays
Hmm.
the role perfectly for me.
Hmm.
Um, it just she's a perfect fit. Like, I love her. I really really love her in it. I was really pleasantly surprised to see Christina Ricci playing her playing a role in the movie. I
Mhm.
think he's one of her professors slash
Counselor or something.
yeah, like dorm mother or something like
Yeah.
that. A lot of really cool actors are in it. And I love the visuals. I am
Hmm.
off and on a Tim Burton fan. Like there are some movies that I don't like, especially when the later films when he had like Johnny Depp in a lot of his films, and it's just like to me, it's like the same thing over again. But I like that he has picked like new actors to work with, that it's kind of
Hmm.
fresh. I like that there's a diverse cast because there's like actually people of color in it, which is amazing that he's finally realized that people outside of Caucasians exist in the world, and that the aesthetic is still there. Because I think one of the problems is that I don't want to put words in his mouth, but basically like that people of color didn't fit his aesthetic or the look of what he was creating. But the characters, Jenna Ortega, there's a siren who plays sort of her arch nemesis,
Yeah.
who's African American. Like you can be a person of color and still be goth or
Hmm.
weird, and they do it so well and so perfectly that it's like you proved yourself wrong, Tim. But I mean, apparently he's seen the light because he did a really good job with this show. Plot wise, like I'm really interested to see where it goes. I think it's really
Hmm.
kind of a nice spin from Wednesday having the focus solely on her. Um, she is such a beloved character for so many that I
Yeah.
think she kind of stole the show or the film uh, previously in Adam's Family Values, that the Christina Ricci was so popular. So it's nice to see the attention on that character of Wednesday Adams. Really
You can
cool.
also argue that she also stole the show or for the car animated films as well.
Yeah.
I would
Yeah. I
say.
think that once Christina Ricci is sort of that character, it just really blew up. I mean, I don't think the TV shows really focused
Yeah.
on Wednesday
Hmm.
Adams that much.
Hmm.
But then when you introduce sort of a really sardonic, sarcastic, like goth, preteen, teenager, like it's such a likable character. I
Yeah.
mean,
Hmm.
it's sort of outsider. So a lot of those same themes are in this series. Being an outsider, not belonging anywhere, not wanting to follow in the footsteps of your parents, which is kind of
Hmm.
interesting. Catherine Zeta-Jones or Morticia Adams' character is sort of the ultimate like goth weirdo queen. Like she was, basically ruled at this school that they sent
Yeah.
Wednesday Adams to, where she was like the head of the
Fencing
fencing
club.
team,
Hmm.
and she was, kind of developing her psychic abilities and all of that. So it's kind of a neat spin to see Wednesday Adams sort of resent her family because previously we've never really seen that aspect to it. And they've also introduced some really cool characters, like there's vampires, werewolves, sirens, people with no faces. I don't know if you caught that. There's a character that like has literally like no face. um, so it's really cool. Like it's a cool world that they sort of like a spin-off of like Harry Potter
Yeah.
universe, I guess, meets like the X Mansion or Professor X School for Gifted youngsters. Like
That's
it's
what
sort of
I
like
felt more was that
yeah,
was that it was more of like a X-Men or Professor X School for Gifted Children type of thing.
yeah.
And it was great. I loved it. It was a wonderful show. Like you, I only saw the first episode, so I'm intrigued where they're going. And I really like the fact that they mentioned that she was writing detective stories. And
Mhm.
that was like the main, like one of the main plot points because now she gets to live out a detective story. So I thought that was really cool. Um, Jenna Ortega was just fabulous. I love the use of painted black in her cello scene.
Yes. Okay. So I wanted to bring that up, and I didn't know if you picked it up, but I watched it twice. The
Mhm.
first time that I saw it, I was like, "Well, I know this song." I'm like, I was like trying to hum it. I'm like, "Okay, I know it, I know it." And then I'm like, then the second time I heard it, I'm like, "Damn it, I know that I know this song, but it's just like on the tip of my tongue." And I'm like, "Rolling Stones, Paint It Black."
There you go.
Of
Yeah.
course. Yeah.
It was awesome just seeing her on the rooftop playing that and all the visuals that came with along with that. And I think that's what makes this series so great for me so far is the visual aspect of it. It's very
Yeah.
striking. It's very I would say it's one of the most cinematic series I think we've seen in a while. I haven't finished up Sandman yet, so I don't know where that compares to this, but for me it's one of the most cinematic series.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of the positive aspects of Tim Burton's filmmaking or directing really shows in
Hmm.
this, and so I think this is like a return to true form for him, and hopefully, like we see maybe we'll see more Wednesday, or maybe we'll get like a Pugsley spinoff. But it opens
Mm-hmm.
up a whole like new universe of the Adams where we can kind of see maybe Tim Burton or other people creating more of that universe and seeing more of those characters developed.
Yeah, definitely. I I've always liked the Addams Family movies, so to see this as a continuation, not a continuation, but a an extension of that, I think it's really cool.
Yeah. I don't know if I brought up, but did you ever see around Halloween the Munsters movie came out directed by Rob Zombie? Did we talk about that?
We didn't talk about it. I tried my hardest to watch it, but I
Yeah.
could not. It was like, you know what? I changed it. I'm sorry, Rod Zombie, but
I was so disappointed because he's such a big fan of the Munsters. Like he wrote a song called Dragula. Like it's part of his aesthetic. Like I had such high hopes,
mhm.
and it's so cringy and bad. Like it's not even like bad in a good way. It's just like unwatchable.
Right, right.
Really disappointing. So I don't know. It just occurred to me that like because the Munsters and the Addams Family get
Hmm.
compared a lot because
Yeah.
they're very similar, but I would have to say that I've always been more of a fan of the Addams Family. Even the television, like the television show, I like the Addams Family show. I like
Interesting.
obviously the movies, and then there's cartoons, and then now this iteration of Wednesday.
I was always a fan of the Munsters TV show. I mean, I always liked Herman Munster. I thought he was hilarious, just a big old goofball, right? And how everyone he doesn't see himself as that monster that everyone else portrays him. So he sees
Yeah.
himself as a regular guy. So he gets scared when everyone says monster and stuff. I always thought that was hilarious to me. And the way ooh, I can't think of what's her name. The wife. What's the wife name?
It's Herman Munster and Lily.
Lily Munster. She was such a the matriarch of that family. She really was, even though it's the monsters and he's the husband, especially during the time when it was released. I always thought she was such a powerful character because she made everyone listen to her, or at least him listen to what she had to say, and I always admired that from that
So,
character.
so are you saying that you had a crush on her? Is that what we're getting at?
Yes, I wanted her to boss me around, tell me what to do. The secret is out.
Both of the actual, the actresses that portrayed Lily Munster and Marticia Adams were both like drop dead gorgeous actresses of
Mhm.
like that Hollywood age, like out of like the goth,
Yeah.
aesthetic, and they were both really, really beautiful. So and talented actresses. So I was a fan of both of them. But outside of that, I also saw I ventured out to the movie theater and saw The Menu
Oh,
with Ralph
nice.
Fiennes
Fines. Mhm.
and um, a lot of other people, Nick Holt,
Nicholas Holt, right? Yeah.
Nicholas Holt, and I forget the main character, her name. I think she's Argentinian.
I'll tell you right
Um,
now. It's
yeah,
Anya Taylor-Joy.
yeah. I love her. I love the
Yeah,
way
she's
she
awesome.
looks. She's just really beautiful. She has a really unique beauty. I mean, I don't want to spoil anything for people that haven't seen the movies because it's somewhat kind of good to go into it like not really knowing what it's about.
Hmm.
Uh, Obviously, it's sort of like a suspense horror genre, that kind of genre of film. But there are aspects of it that I really liked. The visuals of the actual food that they prepare in the menu. It's interesting because as it's presented in the movie, you get like these beautiful shots of these amazing food creations, and then like the recipe of what it is will show up on screen, and it'll be
Oh,
like
cool. Okay.
whatever. And I thought that was cool. Like the visuals of it were really cool. The actors do really well. Judith Light is in it. She plays like a side character. John Leguizamo's
Hmm.
in it,
Oh,
who
nice.
a big fan of. um Ralph Fiennes is really cool in it. I just couldn't get into I couldn't buy into the plot. I thought it was a little bit too unreasonable. And so for that, like I couldn't get into it. I am not a big fan of it. I mean, I don't think it's a horrible movie, and I know that a lot of my friends have reacted with positive reactions to it, saying that it's really good. But there's just certain aspects of it that I didn't find believable. It wasn't far enough of dark humor for me to find the humor in it, and it wasn't um, horror enough. So it's like half baked. It's like almost
Uh,
there. Like it not, no pun intended, but like it's almost a
Half.
great film, but it just like slightly falls short
Okay.
of it being like a really good film for me. Um, and part of that is that I have a problem when I see movies that I just don't find the actions of the characters to be realistic. Even just, I mean, it could be outside of the norm. I mean, it could, but for the character to do something that doesn't make sense to me,
Hmm.
I can't. It makes me
Why
not.
would you do that? Yeah.
Yeah, it just doesn't make
Yeah.
sense. So, but the acting's great. They're all top tier actors.
Hmm.
Uh, they do really good job with it. Especially Judith Light. She's not in a lot of things, but whenever I do see her, it's like she's such a great
Yeah.
actress.
Hmm.
And Anya Taylor-Joy, I think, is is a great she's going to be making great films moving forward. I lost my train of thought because I started thinking about something. But there's another movie that has some criticism that I saw that's what I started thinking about. And I don't know if you've seen it. Have you seen Neon Demon?
No, I've not. I've heard of it, I think, but I've not
You
seen
should
it.
watch it. So it's
Okay.
good. I like it. I some of the reviews are kind of what I'm saying about the menu, where people think that it falls short, that the plot, the believability of like some of the
Hmm.
stuff that the people do, the characters, the visuals are really amazing. It's basically
Okay.
about uh, Elle Fanning is this like big-eyed, naive young lady that comes to Hollywood to become a model, and then these things happen to her and by her and around her, uh, and it's just beautiful, beautiful. It's just very provocative visually.
Okay.
Um, the acting's really good, and obviously, like from a photographer's point of view, I just fell in love with the visuals of it. It's really stunning to look at. The plot is it's not very over complicated. It's pretty like straightforward, but it's sort of in the vein of like a Rosemary's Baby, or um, something like that, where it's like it's not over the top horror. It's not like these outland like big monsters coming out, or it's kind of subtle, the horror. Keanu Reeves has like a small like cameo in it, and he's really good in
Okay.
it. But it's really good. I highly recommend it to you. And I think that if you recall, Ed Luce, when he
Yeah.
was on the podcast, he talked about it, and he was surprised
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
we hadn't seen it. And I agree with him. It's very good. He had a kind of a theory. If you go back and listen to our interview with him, he had a theory about what happens in the movie. And so while I was watching it, I was kind of reflecting back. Yeah, that makes sense. But definitely recommend it. And then maybe if you can, I think it's on Amazon Plus. If you have Amazon Plus,
Yeah.
um, maybe we can review it
More in depth.
part next week, because I have a feeling that you're going to have a strong reaction to it as well.
I will watch it then before next week.
Yeah.
There was another movie I did see, and I think now if you know me, you know I'm not a big fan of Nicolas Cage as an actor. He just doesn't really do it for me, I guess. But
Yeah.
I did watch The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, I think it's called. Yeah, The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, which is Cage as Nick Cage in the movie. And
Oh well.
it was hilarious. It was such a delight. It was so refreshing. So it stars Nick Cage, Pedro Pascal's in it, Tiffany Haddish, and a slew of other characters. But it was not what I was expecting at all. It
Yeah.
completely caught me off guard, and that's I think probably the best time in a movie, right? Is when it catches you off guard. And it's just so much fun to watch. So Nick Cage, I do give you the respect for that movie. He does that. So, but it was just fun, and I think you should watch it if you haven't seen it yet.
Yeah. I appreciate him in the sense that he's a very daring actor. Like he's not afraid to make himself look stupid.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it hits. You know, I think he won an Academy Award, right? For
Leaving
Moonstruck.
Las Vegas.
Oh, it was
Moonstruck?
Cher won for Moonstruck, but he was very good in Moonstruck. Leaving Las Vegas, like he's a great actor, but because he takes these like crazy choices in his performance, sometimes it just doesn't work. But when it does, he's really good. I think back to, you know, the like urban legend stories that I heard about him and to New Orleans and him thinking that he had a curse placed on himself and going to a voodoo priestess, voodoo priestess, in order to get it lifted, and her telling him what she had to do. He's a very interesting person, for sure. I think that, you know, he'd be one of those people that it would be interesting to see a documentary about his life, and all the choices that he's made. And
well, this is part documentary. You can go watch it.
Yeah. I mean, married to Lisa Marie Presley, obsessed with Elvis, comic book collector, you know, lost millions of dollars, weirdo, great actor. He's interesting. So, Cole, I have to check it out. I do like Pedro Pascal and Tiffany Haddish as well. So it sounds like a really good cast.
Yeah, it's a fun movie. You should watch it. And I don't know, just Nick Cage. It just, I don't know what it is. It just never really. I mean, Con Air was okay. Ghost Rider, I hated. It's just, I don't know. Maybe it's just what you said. It's just taking these choices and chances that don't often hit. But this was a hit. This was definitely a hit for me.
Nice. So you being a Daredevil fan, have you connected the dots of where Nicolas Cage got his name and where it came from?
His name, like Nicolas Cage.
So Nicolas Cage is not his real name,
right? I figured that. So I'm guessing. No, I haven't connected the dots.
So in the Daredevil universe in Netflix, Luke Cage is
okay.
So he got his name from Luke Cage.
Really? So he thinks he has bulletproof skin. Interesting. Okay.
He's a comic book fan, so he changed his last name. I think he's a Coppola, and he didn't want to get any preferential treatment.
Okay.
Francis Ford Coppola's nephew, I think.
I didn't know that. Interesting.
Yeah, Jason Schwartzman is a Coppola as well. His mom is Talia Shire.
I didn't know that either. Wow, that's a big branching family tree. We should do a whole episode on the Coppolas. My goodness.
Yeah, they're pretty. I think Roman Coppola makes films. Sofia Coppola.
I know Sophia. Yeah.
Francis Ford Coppola's father is a composer, and he did one of my favorite scores, which is the score to Dracula, Bram Stoker's Dracula. One of my favorite scores is that. So, and I think he also did the score for The Godfather too, if I'm not mistaken. But really talented family.
Yeah, very, very much so. And speaking of talented families, just talented persons. So earlier this year, or last month, or whenever it was, I went into the Smith Center here in Las Vegas and watched Hamilton for the first time live. And it was phenomenal. It was awesome. And I reached out to one of the actors on there because I wanted to just say a thank you or congrats on a great performance. And I asked him to come onto the show. And luckily enough, he agreed. So I sat down earlier today and had a conversation with Justin Showell. And why don't we just go ahead and play that for everyone right now? Well, hello, everyone, and welcome back to our PopCultX Little Talks. It's our conversation series where we chat with a wide variety of creative and talented people. Today, we are thrilled to be joined by Justin Showell. Now, Justin is an actor, singer, dancer who you can currently find in the Hamilton's and Peggy National Touring cast. So, Justin, dare I say it. Welcome to the
Hello.
show.
Yay. Thank you for having me. No, this is really, really awesome. And
Yeah,
I so enjoyed performing for you in Las Vegas.
exactly. And that is where I saw you in the most recent, well, not most recent, when Hamilton came through town. And I was just thrilled to finally get a chance to see Hamilton. And well, I'm going to get into that a little bit later on. Let's
Okay.
talk about first,
Okay.
let's talk a little bit about you. So when did you realize that you wanted to be a performer, an actor, or singer, or dancer? How did that come about?
Sure. Well, so music has always been a really big part of my family and my culture. I grew up in church, so I was singing in the choir when I was really young. So there was always an expression through song, like through
Oh,
singing,
okay.
that felt very natural, especially to my mom. I have separated parents, and spent a lot of time growing up with my mom.
Mhm.
And so singing in the car was like a normal pastime for us
Right,
too.
right.
And so that kind of felt like I have earlier memories of singing than I do really of like having conversations or speaking really. And so it feels like that, like music is a very primary language to me. And then my aunt, my mom's twin sister, is an actor. She was on
Oh,
Broadway in
cool.
Hairspray,
Oh, nice.
and in the National Tour of Rent, among like many other things. And so I think growing up from a young age, I saw someone in my family like
Hmm.
really doing it. Like it wasn't
Hmm.
just like not to minimize it, but it wasn't something that felt only like it could be a hobby. Like I always saw like what it looked like as a career too from a young age, which I think
That's
is
cool.
kind of different from some other people's exposure. And so it was never kind of a question to me whether or not like it was something legitimate that I could, get into. And then from there, I started doing theater camps and, like elementary school productions and everything.
That's
So yeah.
cool. So I saw in your bio that you were born and raised in Maryland, and then you
Hmm.
went to a boarding school for the arts in Massachusetts. Now,
Yes.
I went to a school for the creative and performing arts, but I didn't have to go to another state for it. So it was just right there. How was that like
Right.
for you? How did that help
It's
shape
cool.
you?
It was really cool. Yeah, and I mean, even if you didn't get bored there, I feel like we share a similar thread of like going, like there's something about being in high school and arts being like the dominant culture,
Hmm.
because that's
Hmm.
so not like what I think the general like
True.
experience
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
So it's really cool for that to be the main thread where everyone's choosing to be there to express in that creative way. And as far as the boarding school goes, it's Walnut Hill School for the Arts, shout out. Um, and I went to their summer program the summer after my seventh grade year of middle
Oh, wow.
school.
Okay.
And so I went there and like really just fell in love with the campus. And, they tell you a little bit about the school while you're there. It's meant to be a gateway kind of thing,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Yeah.
it definitely got me attracted to the school. And so I spent the whole of the next year like convincing my mom like that I could do it, like like which was complete. At that time we were living in North Carolina, which is even further, so that's like 12 hours
Oh,
drive
wow.
away.
Okay.
And I spent so much time kind of, I think there might have been a presentation of some sort of as like to why I was ready for this kind of a big venture. And I remember she even was kind of cute the way she told me. She was like, so we've decided that because I also applied to a school, a private school for high school in North Carolina too, that I wasn't as thrilled about going
Hmm.
to. I won't shout them out. Um, but, um, but she was like, we've decided that you're going to stay in North Carolina. And like, I think my chest sunk a little bit
Oh,
when she said it.
no.
And then she was like, for the summer until you go to, she did like a big like Oprah
Right.
reveal. um, and so, yeah, it was amazing. Like to be 14 years old and living away from your parents, like kind of having a pseudo college
Yeah,
experience,
exactly. Yeah.
like, in Massachusetts, like it definitely, your friends kind of become family in a different way. And the art schedule was so intensive and
Hmm.
exciting. So yeah, I really feel like the I definitely I also I don't know if you're going to ask this. I might be messing up your order, but
Go
I
ahead. No.
also went to the University of Michigan studying
Mhm.
musical theater for college, and I definitely credit a lot of my artistry to that program as well. And I think like the way in which I'm able to fully immerse myself in the arts and not really get tired of it and always find something new, that energy really started in high school for me, because
Nice.
that
Nice.
curiosity was really like pulsing through the campus. I felt like so. Yeah,
That's cool.
definitely great experiences.
So would you say then that's when like your really passion for really being on stage and in the spotlight was formed?
I think so, because I mean, I definitely was on stage before then and really like, nah, so I guess maybe I take that back. I had already developed that passion. Like
Okay,
I
so you
knew
got
that
the
this was
bug
what
early then.
I got, the bug early for sure. Um, and then I think, yeah, I think that something about studying it, this like there's performing, and then there's like the craft of studying
Yeah,
that
that's
I
true.
think that is a little bit different. And I think, the love, in my opinion, the love of performing can die out, after a while, especially, depending on the role or depending on how
True.
often you're doing it or where you're doing it or whatever. But I think there's something about the craft that if there is like a desire born in someone to learn about it and to be curious about the writers of the field, and
Hmm.
the different ways that you could approach material, or like, vocally, like how to manipulate the voice. And like once that interest is really in there, then I think that that's what sustains artists for a long time and gives that. So I think that's what might have been born when I went to the performing arts school.
Awesome. Yeah, that's very true. The craft side of it, you don't really think about it that much. I at least for me, as being a major part of it. But it
Mm,
really is. It really is. It's that underlying, the back end that no one else sees because it's just you doing it yourself. It's not like it's you could put that on the stage, but it's really is the
right,
backbone of it. Yeah, definitely.
right.
So you graduated from University of Michigan with your
Go
BFA
blue.
in musical theater.
Yes.
What when do you realize that, okay, I have this passion for it. I love what I'm doing here. How do I turn this into my career or into, I don't want to call it work, but how do you transition from school into the pro side of it, I guess you would say?
Well, the funny thing, actually, not to correct you, because I think that that's a common, conception. I think
Mm-hmm.
something that I'm learning even more is that we actually should call it work. And I think that
Okay.
the place that I think this is a recent sort of development in my mentality. Um, but I think that I'm going to get on a soapbox for just a short moment, and then I'm going to step
Feel
down
free.
gracefully. But I think that our industry is so unique because it is glamorous to the public eye, I think. And
Right,
it
right.
has a lot of attention. It pays well, and it feels like it's the industry built on like dreams, like an
Oh
actor's
yeah.
dream.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think what we're realizing as an industry and as workers is that that idea is not as sustainable. Like we are a workforce, and that kind of mentality is not sustainable for people who are engaged in an industry and in work. Like in order for us to like have, you know, rights and equitable
True,
treatment and
true.
like,
Yeah.
fair
Hmm.
wages that really resemble or really correlate with the amount of energy we're putting out. Like we have to view ourselves as, people that are punching in, because we are,
That's true. Yeah.
So I just think that's really interesting, because this is a recent development as I'm 25, like we had 2 years of a pandemic so like I'm really like really still learning how to be a person within this career of the arts. But to get into it, I was fortunate to be at the University of Michigan, because it's really renowned as one of the best musical theater programs in the country. And I think it holds true I think there are many things that make it that way about the actual experience being there. But then I think one of the biggest things that cements it as one of the best is that the connections, like it runs so deep in the industry. And there's a showcase that happens at the end of your senior year in New York that is really an introduction. It's a hello. So it's not meant to be super high stakes, but at the same time, it feels that way, because it's like, because like I'm not even going to BS you about it. It really feels high stakes, because, there are casting directors, agencies, different people there that are just really interested to see like what this class brings, what these like different players will bring to the field. And so from that showcase, that's where, I signed with, I had a few meetings with different agents, and I signed with my agents that I love. And I had even before I signed with my agents, I had like 3 or 4 auditions just from that, showcase that really like big auditions that I was like, oh, wow, like I could start working, kind of today. And I didn't book any of those auditions. And I say that just to say, like, it's really it's a game of preparation, but it's also a game of chance, because I was prepared, I showed my best self, but sometimes it's just not the moment, and like more often than not, it's not the moment. And so it's just like really continuing to show up and encourage yourself, and surround yourself with a support system that believes in you and that encourages you. Those were all things that were really helpful. And then I had Hamilton audition in May. I went in and didn't hear anything.
Well, let's hold on there for a second.
Okay.
What song did you use for your audition? And we're gonna go right into Hamilton. Let's do it all here.
Do you want to? So for my Hamilton audition, what song?
Is that I want to know what song did you use for your Hamilton audition? You can't just gloss over that for me.
So Hamilton is, I guess they're similar to other shows, where I always thought that you kind of go in, you're like, I'm singing Sir Duke by Stevie Wonder, and then you like, and then the accompanist begins and you sing your song, and they're like, awesome, or thank you, next, and that's always like kind of how it's been portrayed. But most shows actually will give you material from their show.
Okay.
They call it a packet, an audition packet, because it's usually a stapled together piece. If you print it out, a lot of people have it on their iPads now these days. But so it'll have some selections from the show that they want you to do. And when I went in May, it was kind of like, Hamilton is interesting. This is kind of for the viewers, a little inside like scoop for how they're running. But for the first audition for men and women, generally it's called a general audition. They will give you Dear Theodosia, a cut of Dear Theodosia, and a cut of Washington on Your Side. It's usually that first, every action has the opposite reaction to the end of Jefferson's rap. And that makes sense to me, because it's like, they want to see a bit of singing, a bit of rapping, and all storytelling through both of those mediums. So I did that, didn't hear anything. That was May 2019. I was fortunate enough to have some summer theater lined up in Wichita, Kansas, Music Theater Wichita, which is a great summer stock theater. So I was doing, a whole like slew of shows. Like we did Chicago, we did In the Heights, we did,
Oh,
I think
wow.
they did
Okay.
Sound of Music before I got. So it's just like one of those things with like a lot of college,
Yeah.
kids changing their costumes every week to do like different shows. And it's a bunch of fun. It feels like elevated summer theater camp in a way, like that you're
Nice.
getting
Very
for,
nice.
which, and so I did that, and then knew in come August that I was going to be making the move to New York when this was all done. And that, they pay us at Summer Theater, but it's definitely not a month a month of rent's worth like in New York City. So I'm getting ready to move to New York. I have talked with a friend who's letting me stay in her place before she moves there for a month and a half. I know that the first thing that I need to do when I get to New York is find a job, probably two jobs, to sustain like living there. And so it really was an overwhelming few weeks. But I guess kind of buckled down. I got into my stride, and I was juggling 2 gym jobs at the front desks of gyms, and then going on auditions when I was having the opportunity, and trying to just like remain sane all around with it. And I remember like maybe 3 weeks into being in New York and doing that grind, I heard from my agents that Hamilton wanted to see me for another audition.
Awesome.
And I was like, okay, cool. Like they saw me in May. So being seen again by the same team is generally like good sign. Thing. Like you're like, you want to see me a little bit more of me. That's awesome. This time, I didn't know at all what they were considering me for. It makes sense now, given my position in the show. But this time they wanted me to perform a bit of Lawrence Phillip, a bit of, I think that was the Story of Tonight bit that he sings, and some of his rap in My Shot. And then they wanted me to do Lafayette, I think some of Guns and Ships, and Jefferson's What Did I Miss? And they wanted me to do Mulligan's, Battle of Yorktown rap, and something else from Mulligan. I think it was like Joan Matilda's Apprentice, just like a short snippet of what his introduction rap was. And I was like, okay, this is kind of strange, like all these different characters. And I had been listening to Hamilton for quite some time since it came out freshman year. So like I was a part of that crew that was always listening to it.
Okay.
But it was so funny realizing when I was looking at the sheet music, how many times I had been like substituting a word in that had nothing to do with it, like something completely random into it. So it was like, I really had to like learn this material for the first time. Went in, they were very complimentary. They gave me some notes. Notes are kind of like adjustments, different things that they want just to see, partly, it's because there's a style or a flair that they're looking for, but other partly, I think people will give a note just to see if you kind of are cool to work with, if you're, listening and taking it in, flexible, and then I remember I left. I had another audition after that for a different show. So I kind of was like, switching gears. And then I found out later that they wanted me to come in later that week for a dance audition.
Nice.
So that was really exciting to me because I was like, okay, cool. They want to see me again. Like, like they're not tired of seeing me. That feels nice. And so I went in again for I think I'm missing something here. So I did that first, I think after that first vocal audition, they had me in again for another vocal audition with a few more people behind the table. I think there was like the head of music and the head. So I did all of that one more time. And just they gave me some more ideas to expand on. And then after that, they let me know that later that week, they wanted me to dance. So I came in, did this short combo to my shot, which was kind of like, they have the dancers, the ensemble that like really, really gets down in the show. And, and this was not that. Like, this was like, still like really cool movement, but like very like simple, like, things that we could kind of put together for the more movers is what they would call it. Like the principal people that are on kind of the surround area, like during the show. Sorry, a bit of a spoiler there. Unless you've seen it on Disney Plus, I'm sure everyone has.
I'm sure most people have already at this point. Yeah. If they haven't,
so
they
all
should.
That said, right, exactly. Check it out. But all that said, I do the dance audition and then I don't hear anything. And so then I'm like, okay, all of that, like there's a lot of action, there was a lot of movement. And I was like really talking, both my roommates and best friends, who also went to Michigan, they're also in this like field. So I was talking with them. I was like, oh, I knew I did better the first time I did the dance. I didn't like just going through all of it. And like my best friend Griffin was like, chill, like, girl, you have to relax.
Relax.
Like, it's like, like this is what it is. Like, you have to just stop thinking about it. So at a certain point, I kind of got it out of my mind and was still auditioning and still working. And I remember one morning I talked to my dad and kind of cried a little bit on my way down to work because I was just like, this is really hard, Dad. Like I'm kind of really living paycheck to paycheck. I'm really grinding. It really doesn't feel like it's returning to me. And it's only been 2 months. And like, this is hard. And I remember he just encouraged me. He said something to the effect of, we always know that we're like living in our purpose and fulfilling our purpose when love is at the center of what we're doing. So long as like that love is there for it, then you can know that you're in like the right place at the right time and all the other things will kind of fall as they should. And, I think at that time I was like, yeah, but I'm really upset. But he was right. And it feels kind of cinematic in this way. But then I was at work and I, how you get a voicemail and you can see kind of a transcription of it on the iPhone. Yeah. So you see a few words and I was like, I don't have this number saved.
Who is this?
Yeah, I don't have this number saved. And I see certain things like offer, which for actors is like a huge word because that's usually what you see when you get a job, like offer, give me a call, these sorts of things. So I'm behind the desk. I'm working with a friend that I went to both high school and the university with. So we like have a very deep relationship. I was like, can you actually cover the desk for just 1 second? I need to just step outside. And I listened to the whole messages from one of my agents. And she's like, we have the offer from Hamilton.
Wow.
And give me a call back. We have more specifics. And I'm literally through the glass window, like jumping up, like people are looking at me like I'm crazy working out. And so that was October of 2019. And come November 2019, I was in San Francisco with the Peggy company of Hamilton.
Wow, that's awesome. That's I just pictured it when you were describing it in the whole cinematic way, like you said. So you see you outside jumping around, but inside cut to inside the glass, you hear them talking normally. You just see you jumping like a crazy person.
Right, no sound. Like you don't hear any of my sounds. You just like hear the gangster rap music that's playing at this lower west side like gym.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
And it must be a thrill just to be a part of that production. I mean, when I discovered it, when Disney Plus came out with it, that's when I've heard about it, but I hadn't seen it or really listened to it because I figured I'm not going to get to New York anytime soon. I don't want to get my hopes up and listen to this. But when it came out on Disney Plus, I was just blown away by the whole production of it. I was just enamored with it. I just put it nonstop on my iPhone, just listen over and over and over again. So when it came to town in this year, I knew I had to jump at it. I was like, I have to see this. And I'm so glad that I did. And nothing to say is wrong with Anthony Ramos' performance in the film. But seeing your interpretation of John Lawrence, Philip Hamilton was at another level. It just blew me away even more. It was just like, wow. And to have that connection that you had with the rest of the cast, to see the way you guys just interacted with one another, it was mind blowing. It really was for me. And it was just so phenomenal to be able to see that live. So I thank you for that, for being able to touch the audience.
I thank you. No, that really, like, the affirmation, just to respond, it never falls on deaf ears for me. Like, I feel like, as confident as we have to be to put ourselves out there in that way, it really is like, it feels like against human nature to really expose yourself
that's
to
true.
like that many people in that way. And so to hear that it had an impact, landed on you in that way is really quite touching and beautiful. And I'm grateful. Thank you for saying that. It's quite lovely. Thanks.
How many roles do you have to know for Hamilton? I mean, how hard is that I know, because I saw you when you did John Lawrence, Philip Hamilton, but then a friend of mine shared a picture of the casting and whatnot when she went, and you were Mulligan that night in Madison. So it was like, and I think it was just like the next day or something like that. And it was like, how complex is that to have to store all that up there?
It's really something. I'm not even gonna BS you. It definitely is a task. Again, this is my first professional gig outside of college and the educational realm, and so I had heard of swings and certainly had heard of understudies, and so, but I had never really conceived what it meant to be one and like what that role is. On TV, the understudy is always shown as, oh, you didn't get the part, and so you got the understudy,
right?
And maybe you'll go
the
on.
Backup, yeah.
Exactly, you're the backup, and I think that even though I had a more in-depth understanding of the field, I think I kind of, admittedly, still had a bit of that notion in my mind. And it was only until I booked this, because I wasn't auditioning. I think that's the part. I wasn't auditioning for John Lawrence. I wasn't auditioning for Lafayette or Mulligan. I truly was auditioning for a slot that they knew was going to open up, which was the person that was understudying all of these roles in this. And it's a very specific skill set, and depending on which show you're in, and this is no downplay to the actors that are on stage every night, because the feat that they undergo with their bodies and their instruments to kind of find something new every night is its own masterful feat, with that, there is a special skill set to say that not only is this actor going to be one that's going to be realistic playing Lawrence Phillip with their skill set and with their energy and whatever they bring, but could also then, like you said, the next night go into Mulligan, who certainly, I think, in comparison to John Lawrence, needs to have a bit more gravitas, a bit more of a almost paternal energy among the group of guys. And then Act 2 with Madison, you're literally thinking, James Madison at that point must have been in his 40s, and Philip Schuyler is 9 years old. There's really what it takes to be able to embody those different. It's something, and it definitely has stretched me and strengthened a lot of my skills throughout this process. I remember first getting to the show in November of 2019 and starting with Lawrence Phillip as my first role that I was learning. And then finishing learning that role, but then not performing it, but then moving on to learning Lafayette Jefferson and being like, well, wait, I haven't even performed. And they're like, yeah, just keep
Keep
that
it in
in the back
mind.
of your head. And then we're going to learn completely. We're starting at the top. Dun, da, 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 dun, dun, dun. We're starting at that with a different role. And then you're like, okay, awesome. And then I learned all of that.
Uh-huh.
And then didn't perform either of them. And then I started learning Mulligan. And finally they were like, oh, okay, now there's an opportunity for you to go on for Lafayette. I still hadn't performed Lawrence Phillip yet, the first role. And so I'm like, okay, I'll go on for Lafayette. And I went on. It was my debut. I was so excited. It went well. And I was like, okay, at least I've performed now.
You got your first one out of the way. Yeah.
Exactly. And then the next day, I remember walking into the theater. I must have been like 5 minutes away. And my stage manager texted me and was like, hey, can you give me a call? I thought that was strange because, we're about to sign in a moment. Mm-hmm. And she called, she was like, hey, I know you just did your debut for Lafayette last night. This is a matinee for a Saturday. Was hoping that you would feel comfortable going on for Lawrence Phillip now today, because it would just like make the puzzle piece really easy for me if I didn't have to move too many different people around to cover it. I understand if that's too short notice for you, we can definitely try and put someone else on. But if you're available to do it, then, and I think I just was like, let me just say yes, because that's the other thing. You don't really know all the time when you're going to be going on. So I was like,
yeah, true.
Sure, I can do it. And I made it through. Sometimes you just have to make it to the other side. That's like the goal. The bar can be low sometimes, So yeah. It's a cool job. Everything always stays new. It's always
I can imagine, yeah.
Fresh,
I remember hearing an interview with Lin-Manuel that said that as soon as he can get through My Shot, that it was all like not downhill, but the night was going to be made. So yeah.
Yes.
That's really, really cool. And thanks for the inside info into how that works. It's quite refreshing. I mean, like I said, I did a little bit of theater in high school, but they stopped there and, went different ways. But I always want to get back on stage at some point. Mm-hmm. Why not?
You definitely, and as you should. Okay, I have two questions really quick if I can, which is
okay.
I know, isn't that something new?
It is.
What is the show or production that you did in high school that really was like, this thing is kind of fresh and exciting? And then today, if you saw yourself, back on stage, like what would be really cool to kind of dig into?
Well, I think the one that really grabbed me in high school was Little Shop of Horrors. We did that, and it was so much fun. I was not on stage for that, but I was everything else behind stage. And it was that was such a blast. Just the energy with that show. It was just so much fun.
Great show.
And I'd even love to do that again at some point.
Yeah.
But
heck yeah.
I think also I was in Into the Woods. And if I were to get back on stage, I would love to be back in Into the Woods. That Sondheim show is just so spectacular to me. Yes. And just the mixing of everything. So Into the Woods is what I would want to do again. If it was something that I haven't been a part of, I would love to be in Rent. That's like probably one of my favorite ones. You're saying right now.
Like a whole slew of just like great core shows that I'm like, yes, these are all so good for different reasons too.
Well, I'm going to turn the table on you. What if you had, what would be your ideal or dream role coming up next for you after, let's expand, say you've done your Hamilton run, it's time for you to move on from that. What would be the next role that you say, what, if you could pick anything, what would you want?
Yeah.
And we can start manifesting it right now.
Yeah, we should. I really believe in that. So, so I think there's the answer that I'd give. So there's the dream. Mm-hmm. So there's a show called Passing Strange that is sort of a hero's journey told through a rock musical language. There's the rock artist Stu, who I wasn't familiar with before seeing the show and performing in it in college. But it's kind of his retelling of his own life and his life's journey, finding his artistry. And it explores really cool themes about being Black in many different cultural backdrops. And
nice.
so like he spends some time in South Central LA, and then spends some time in Amsterdam, spends some time in Berlin. And being Black like means something different in each of those places, and definitely has its own positives and certainly struggles in each of those contexts. And so I just think it's a really cool and honestly refreshing piece that explores more than a monolithic experience about Blackness. I think that for all of the triumphs of musical theater, I think that exploring diversity is one that there's still a lot of growth to be done. I think there's really a very simplistic gaze at minority groups that's told through musical theater storytelling for the most part. And I think this one does a really great job of opening that up. So there's this one character named Youth, which I think is just also really cool because it's meant to connect with everyone. Like he is youth. Right. He is everyone's like exploration of what that is. Would love to play him down the line if there was some revival of that to come. And more simply, and probably more mainstream, I definitely think I'd be a good Simba also in The Lion King. And that's one that I think would be really, really beautiful. Just that music and the costumes and sort of the size of that production, but also the honesty and truth of it, I think is something that would be really exciting to kind of delve into next too.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah. I hadn't heard of Passage Strange. I'm going to have to look that up. Definitely.
It's all on YouTube. Yeah.
Okay.
Live recording. Spike Lee filmed it. So yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay. I'm going to go watch that. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I encourage everyone out there to go watch that as well. I mean, it sounds amazing. So
yeah, definitely.
What advice do you think you could give to young people who are just starting out in musical theater that maybe you wish you would have heard from someone?
I think I want to put hands on myself too, because I want to be sure to say that I'm also speaking to myself when I say this advice. It's something I feel like we can always continue to learn some of the same lessons in different ways as we move through life. Do you hear that? I think it's a little bit of New York, a taste of New York for the podcast. But I think what really I wish I had heard early on, and I am telling myself now, and would definitely love to speak to young artists and artists of any age, honestly, is that your weirdness, your weird stuff is actually the stuff. Like that's actually the thing. Like the thing that you are in your room and you're kind of like, oh, this is really messy about me, or like not as maybe mainstream attractive about me or something. Like that's the very thing that you ought to really celebrate and zero in on and just appreciate, because we all have it. And I think when I see a film or a TV show or a musical or a play, the thing that moves me to tears, the thing that makes me lean in, is seeing that bit of that stuff in someone, and really twofold admiring their bravery to expose that for us, and accept it about themselves as the actor. And then also to then be able to really more fully see myself in whatever character's journey is being played out, because I'm like, hey, I also have that weird part that, I wouldn't think would be accepted or felt by someone else. So I think really, really like not shying away from that, and quite the opposite, leaning into that and allowing that to be, your brilliance.
Amazing answer. That really is. It really is. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So a final question I have for you, and I thought, since this is a pop culture show, what are you currently reading? What are you currently listening to? What are you currently watching? What do you do when you're not involved in the theater realm? So, just some fireball answers there. Don't have to think too much about them. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Right now I'm reading Go Tell It on the Mountain by James Baldwin. 2 books, Go Tell It on the Mountain and the Tay of Piglet, which is supposed to be the sequel to the Tao of Pooh.
Right.
I haven't read the first one, but those are like kind of my great books that I'm volleying back and forth with right now. Both I highly recommend. Listening to, I'm listening to either Jasmine Sullivan or Amy Winehouse on any given day. Like those are my ladies through and through, loving them both. And then I'm watching like a lot of the rest of the world, White Lotus right now.
Okay.
And loving all of its messiness and drama and cringeworthy moments.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, I want to leave it with this last question because I just remembered it. What's the last thing you do right before you step out on stage or when the curtain goes up? What do you tell yourself? What's like that final moment before showtime? What do you do?
It's so funny. I think you viewers, and you might have seen me do it a couple times here, but I have a habit of placing my hand on my heart and another hand on my stomach. There's something about that has just become really soothing to me. I think it connects me to my breath, gets me, attuned to where my heartbeat is, like how close to the skin it is, or, if it's really fast, not to try and change anything necessarily, but just to say, okay, this is where we are right now. Like that's what it is. And then I have a connection to my faith, and to prayer. And so my dad just recently this year kind of challenged me with memorizing the 23rd Psalm. And that has always just like, for whatever reason, this past year, really been a grounding moment for me, for many different reasons. Like, I think it's cool to like say some text. Like if I could just like think of it as like another piece of text, like I'm already like getting myself in that place. But also I think some of the messages that it has about, like, regardless of your faith or anyone's like faith journey, there's some cool message in there for me about relaxing, lying down in green pastures is my favorite part, because it's like at this point, right before you step onto the stage, you're there. Like there's there's really like nothing to manufacture or muscle about it. Like at this point, you have the preparation. You can listen to the music. You can look into the eyes of your castmates and just know that you're on the ride. So just like lie down in your green pasture and enjoy,
Yeah.
So yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, thank you again, Justin, for spending some time with us today. We really appreciate that. And if people want to follow you or learn more about you, where can they connect with you?
Yeah, definitely. My Instagram is
Okay.
Justin B Show. The show is SHOW. Just my last name, Showell. So you can find me there. And you could go to justinshowell.com. But that website needs a lot of updating and engineering. So let's just start with the Instagram for starts.
Sounds good. So everyone out there, go follow Justin, learn more about his journey, see what's coming up for him next. And if you're in a city where his cast is rolling through, go watch the show.
Check us out.
Yeah, definitely. It is phenomenal. And thank you again, Justin. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me, letting me on your wonderful show.
So thanks again, Justin, for taking some time out of your day to chat with us here at PopCultX. We really appreciate that. We appreciate you willing to just come on with us, nobodies, I guess, not with us in our small following to help share some insight into the Hamilton cast and the Hamilton audition process, just everything that goes along with being on stage. So we appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Yeah. Great conversation. And I think I always really respected and admired people in like musical theater because, they're typically like, what they call triple threats, like having to dance, sing, act. They're just like talented. Like there's no, ability to describe them as being like they're really talented individuals. So it's always really inspiring to go to a theater and watch them perform and kind of be brought into the world of the musical or play that they're performing. And it always is exciting to kind of see someone do something so well.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah.
And one thing he said to me that we didn't capture during the recording is that he always likes to scan the audience, especially during last curtain calls or whatnot, and to see the people's faces. And when he saw me, he was like, "Hey, you were there. I recognize you. You were sitting up front left." I was like, "Oh." So when you go to a show, be careful because they do see you.
Yeah, there's been a couple performances that I've gone to that it's like that you catch their eye and you think like, I wonder if they can see me because they're in the dark audience. And you almost want to like encourage him, like, you're doing a great job. Like, you're killing it. And but that's probably one of my favorite experiences, like when the lights do come on and on certain musicals, they have like a rapport with the audience, like Rent, or Moulin Rouge, Hamilton, where like it's still sort of dancing and singing, and everyone in the audience is kind of like dancing and singing along too. I always like that because it's like it's nice for them to acknowledge like that it's a experience.
Yeah,
it's an exchange, right? Like they're performing and you're the audience, and they're feeding off of your energy, and you feel that too, as opposed to just like curtain closes, they bow and they bounce. So I always like that when they take a few minutes to kind of, they're not hanging out with the crowd, but hanging out with the audience.
Well, in a way, yeah, that's true. They're sharing in the excitement that was just delivered, and it's that emotional release at the end of a show. Yeah. So that's very true.
Cool. So I guess homework for next week is watching. I already forgot what you recommended. Oh, Nicolas Cage, the Nicolas Cage. Let me add it to my phone. Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. I am going to watch with Nicolas Cage and Pedro Pascal, and then we'll be finishing Wednesday. Probably, I should have time to be able to finish the rest of the Wednesday series, which I like that they released it all at once, so you can kind of take it all in.
I'm on the fence on that still. The whole binge method. I think Netflix, they keep saying they're going to stop doing it, but yet they do it. So I don't know. I like the fact that it builds up over a month or 2 months or whatnot. Like Andor, for example, on Disney Plus, the new Star Wars episode that was released weekly, and there was I think 11 or 12 episodes. So that's like almost 3 months of people just talking about the show and the way it's building up to its climactic event at the end, which you haven't seen, but you need to watch because it was such a powerful ending. And then they had a post-credit scene that tied it back in a way that if you know the show and you know the movie Rogue One, you're like, Wow.
So I won't get it. Like,
Yeah,
unless like Darth Vader comes back from the dead and then fights a hologram of Obi-Wan Kenobi and Luke Skywalker joins the fight and then like an Ewok attacks one of them, then maybe.
Well, are you ever going to watch Andor?
Will I?
Yeah.
Probably not.
Okay, so I'm going to give you a brief rundown real quick of what I'm talking about. So in Andor, like a 3-episode arc, he gets locked into this prison. And during the prison, it's like a work camp prison. So him and all the people in his room are just building parts. They don't know what they're building for. It's just like one little like crosshair section of something, right? So they make the part, do the configuration, they get tucked away, and they repeat that for like 12 hours a day. Right. So it's just nothing but that. So at the end of the season finale, in the post-credit scene, they do a CGI effect. They pan out into like this space station, and you see these little robots taking those parts, putting them into a platform, which is to become the weapon in for the Death Star. So how that ties in Rogue One is at the very end of Rogue One, Andor gets killed by the blast, the initial very first test blast of the Death Star. So he was building his own demise in a way.
So Andor is Diego Luna, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm not really.
It's awesome.
With like finally having like Latino representation in the Star Wars universe, only for them to have died. Like, I don't know. Maybe
That's true.
but I'll be enjoying the Latino representation, especially with like the goth girl in Wednesday.
There you go.
And that because I'm pretty sure she's not going to die at the end of it.
Yeah. Probably not.
If she does, Tim Burton, I'll be coming after your little goth hell ass.
There you go.
So, and you have to watch Neon Demon.
I will. I'll put that on my list to watch.
Yeah. All right, cool. So we have some homework for next week. Thank you once again for joining us. Thank you to our guest interview. That was great. And thank you for taking the time to participate in that. Please like, subscribe, share. As always, we are open to any questions that you guys might have, any topics that you want us to cover, or pop culture moments. And we're open to having any guest experts, if you will, in any music, writing, anything like that. So hit us up on Twitter. One of us still has Twitter.
Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We're all over the place.
YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you can find us. Until then, thank you very much, and stay safe, everyone.